Saludos y bienvenidos. Welcome, good morning. Welcome to Conversaciones de Salud. Hoy estamos el viernes, el 15 de agosto del 2025. It's a pleasure to be here with you this morning. We're going to do a little bit more English than the Spanglish because we have a super special, wonderful guest today. It's my honor, my pleasure, my joy to introduce our distinguished guest, Dr. Roni Evans. And Dr. Evans is DC, MS, PhD, and she's going to tell us what all those acronyms mean. But Dr. Evans is Associate Professor at the University of Minnesota's Center for Spiritual Healing and Director of the Integrative Health and Wellbeing Research Program. Doctora Evans, bienvenida, welcome.
Thank you. Buenos dias, and it's so nice to be here today.
I'm so excited to have you here. I've been waiting a long time for this. Yay.
Me too. Yes.
So can we start out with your letters, the DCMS, I know the PhD.
Yeah, so my letters, that's because my parents would say that I didn't want to go off to work, so I kept on going back to school. So the DC is a doctor of chiropractic. So I originally thought I wanted to be a chiropractor and see patients, but then I decided, I got curious, I fell into research, and I went back to school and got my master's in science in clinical research at the University of Minnesota. And then after that, I did my PhD in rehabilitation science. And I do, like you know, I do a lot with pain management. So that's what all the letters are for. And then I had to get a job.
That's always the problem, isn't it?
Yes,
well,
yes.
I want to just share a little bit about Dr. Evans. And if you don't mind, I'm going to read off some of this stuff. So Roni, with nearly 30 years of experience as a clinical research scientist, you have led pioneering work in comparative effectiveness research focused on non-drug approaches for pain management. Wow. Your expertise spans manual therapies, exercise, mindfulness, cognitive behavioral strategies, and other integrative self-management techniques. So when I hear this as a breast cancer survivor, I first of all have to give a shout out to researchers. If it wasn't for researchers, I would not be sitting here today. And so when I look at your background and Partners for Pain, of which I'm a member of, a very proud member, and I see that self-management techniques, I really gravitate towards that. And I wondered if you could take a few minutes and just kind of talk about your 30 years of experience as this clinical research scientist who didn't start out as a scientist.
Well, yeah, I was an English major. I thought I was going to be an English professor. But I went to school in Canada, and my English professor after my English degree said, "You'll never get a job because there's not that many English professors." But so I also like science, so I went into science. But it really, I said I started first as a chiropractor. And that's actually where I got my first job, working in a research lab. And that's where I really learned that I liked research. Because actually I wasn't very good at science in high school. I didn't think I was very good at math. I didn't think I was good at science. That's why I went into an English degree in college. And I realized I really liked it. So I like to say I fell into research when I was a student at chiropractic college, and I continued to work with research. And because I was a chiropractor, chiropractors focus a lot on pain. So that's how my research for pain management came together. So, the chiropractic part came first. I was working with treating pain, learning how to treat pain. But at the same time, I was working in another researcher's lab at the college doing some research on manual therapies. And that's how I fell into research. And then I stayed there. So it just went from there. And I've been doing that for 30 years, which is really hard to believe.
And as we're on the subject of uh, entering into the scientific field, before we started the program, we were visiting on as a young a young adult. Was your wish, your dream? I'm going to be a scientific researcher.
I wish I could say it
What
was.
was
I had no idea, Carmen, what I wanted to be. That was part of the problem. And it was so frustrating to my parents and my teachers. You know, I liked a lot of things. I did fairly well in school, mainly in English and in history. Wasn't the best in science. Everybody wanted to know what I wanted to do. And I was really a little lost. And actually, what happened is I took a year off school. And at the same time, I used to water ski competitively up in Canada. And it's a very short season. And I actually ended up competing in water skiing for quite some time and didn't want to go back to school. But what happened along the way was when I was competing, I hurt myself pretty badly and couldn't compete anymore. And so my parents said, it's time. You need to go back to school. So I went back to school, and that's where, it got me started again to be a little bit more serious about my schooling. And like I said, I thought I was going to do English, but my professor said, you might want to choose something else. I liked anatomy and physiology, so that's how I ended up in chiropractic, and then really fell into research. So I think it came out of, just opportunities that started to present themselves. And I think sometimes that might be an easier way to look at what you want to do, watching for the opportunities, because that's actually something that a good scientist does, is looks for the opportunities. And I found that, I was interested in answering questions, and that's what a scientist does. So I fell into it that way. But, I didn't start saying I wanted to be a scientist. In fact, my science teachers would probably tell me, don't be a scientist. So that's another thing. Don't listen to everybody.
No, I totally agree with you. I was a student who came home with my essay paper in English with a red F circled with a plus. And I would tell my immigrant English speaking dad, Papi, this is for fabuloso. And I couldn't spell, I couldn't put a dangling participle together. And today I'm a publisher. So
Look at
I
that.
think that's why I'm so attracted to your background, because I work with youth with the Strong Mind, Strong Body Foundation
Yeah.
and the youth community journalist. And so I see that 14-year-old me that was told you can't read, you can't write. So I think of you, you can't do science, you shouldn't do English, you better go do something. And yet that those opportunities, and I think I wanted to hit this with you because young people listen,
Mhm.
and they need to know that it's okay to start off with this. And then
Yeah.
you were gonna share a story about your early days kayaking. Do you want
Well,
to tell the story?
I was a
Because
water
don't share it yet.
first. I was a water skier first, and then went back to school. But actually, when I went back to school and then became a chiropractor, all of those things I like to do outside of my job and school, I stopped doing. And life becomes very narrow then, right? And so what I've learned, very early, I started to go kayaking when I was, gosh, this must have been just after I graduated chiropractic college. A friend of mine took me out on the water, and I loved it. And what I loved was that it was kind of freeing, and it offered a different perspective. And when I came back to do my research work, I actually was better at it. because my mind was a little bit more free. So, that the importance of balance, right? Having, getting focused on my work, on my research, but also having a life outside of my research has been very important, because that's, it shows you other perspectives. It doesn't get you so tight to, and so tightly focused, which can be a little bit too much. So I think it's really important that, you take care of your whole self. I know we talk about that a lot. That's a lot of what our research does. It's not just, when we do focus on treatments for pain, it's not just on the pain, but it's the whole person. And I think as a scientist, recognizing that I'm a whole person too has been really important. So that's where the
Oh,
kayak.
that's yeah, and it's a beautiful full circle because as we go in our careers, we learn more along the way of how to yin and yang those two things together. My yin and yang is art, so I have to paint. I gotta glue something. When you said about being out in the water and then being able to come in and kind of merge the two without even realizing it because it's so natural, right?
That's
Yeah,
right.
and I think
It.
and I
Yeah.
think that's so important for the future children who are used to just swiping or not really having that eye to eye, not really recognizing what it's like to take in nature. So I wanted, that's why I wanted to share, get your perspective on that and share that story.
And I do want to just, I think that's a really important point now with so much focus on technology, right? And we get so focused on that. I, in my field as a researcher, we spend a lot of time with our computers. In fact, a lot of people don't realize how introverted, how shy scientists are. And, often scientists don't like to talk to people. And I was very shy. Oh my goodness. I wouldn't answer the phone in my parents' place until I was 16 years old. I was very shy. Now you can't stop me from talking. But it's, and I think science has helped that. It's forced me out. But I think I think we gravitate very early to things we think we're good at or what we feel we're comfortable with. And I think it is important to push yourself out of that comfort zone a little bit and let others push you out of that comfort zone, because you actually can do more than you think you can. Like an example, I never thought I would do any public speaking because I was so painfully shy. Well, look, here we are today. And, look, I go to big conferences and I present and I like doing it. And I think, nothing's impossible. Like, I think very early you think, I'm not good at this or I don't like this. And maybe just be a little bit open to it, that you can actually try things and maybe there's a different way to do it where it feels a bit better. I think you can surprise yourself.
Yes, yes, and follow that little thing inside of you when someone tells you, "Ah, that's no good. You're
Yeah.
never going to be an English teacher. What are you going to
Yeah.
do in English?" You know, and
Who says?
actually, your English is what's helping you be that public speaker because you can communicate with monolingual communities who are just learning English and who need that segue into just that basic conversation, not necessarily that high extensive. So I can see how English was your first yeah, because I had
Yeah.
that experience with the communication and I think more in Spanglish than in English or Spanish. So what comes out, heaven only knows. And
Oh,
so
it
it's good
sounds
to
great to me, Carmen. It sounds great. We understand each other, so it's good.
have, and I think that's why that full circle. And as I work with young people, they're more influenced by someone saying, "Oh no, you can't do that." That an
Yeah.
electrician, you don't want to do that. And we need to to just take out that noise and look into ourselves, into our brain, into uh yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's yeah.
And it's not only, you change over time because you learn, and what you think you can do at some point in your life, that might change, and you have to open to that. And think about it, you're learning all the time
All the
along the way.
time.
I think that's another thing. When you're younger, you think you have to choose the one right thing. And I remember that. That was always, do I do this? Do I do this? It's, you know what? Choose something. And it does come back around. Like you say, my English degree, it's come back around because the grant proposals I have to write, it's all writing. And it's like, wow, that's easy for me because that's what I was trained in very early. So, I think there is no one right way to go. It's like going, okay, what interests you? What do you think, might work for you right now? And it's okay to change. Like, I bet if I asked you how many different things you've done, there's quite a few, isn't there?
Only a zillion or two. It goes with all my personalities because I embrace all my personalities. Most people don't. We every 7 years we change and we become a whatever we. And so I've got a bunch of 7 year
That's your thing,
individuals
a 7 year
running
thing.
around here. But it's good to hear it from someone in your line of work, respected scientists, because it's a big deal. And and so in my line of work, when I can share it with the young people, and all we have to do is just let it resonate with one. We don't need to save everybody and change everything. It's just that one, and that's very powerful. That's how it worked for me. That's how I felt when I entered Partners for Pain. I wasn't like, oh yeah, another committee, yay, yippee ding. They want to learn how to work with us. Google it, and so. But I saw that I saw that it was authentic, that it wasn't a buzz term. It wasn't because it's politically right. It was by these really caring individuals who used to be a kayak, right, whatever, and became a scientist, and so now they really want to come into these communities that are undervalued, underrated, forgotten, whatever. It just is what it is. I don't even care the reason. What I'm glad about is that we're addressing it, and we're bringing it in, and people like yourselves in the team, because your team has come onto the show, and they've each shared, and I saw that very shy thing, and all of a sudden they're really talking about it. And that's why I want to keep doing these shows. That's why Pepe and I are talking about, hey, we got to do podcasts, and we got to keep this voice alive. It just can't come on once and yay and thanks for coming on, but rather so that these young people can feel like they know Ronnie Evans, and when they meet you, they're gonna feel that already welcome. And that's why I'm doing this. I know our original researchers with Solamo, the Somali
Yeah.
Hmong and Latino team with Luis Ortega. I was part of that in the very beginning, and now I can see how it all fits. I couldn't back then, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
but
Yeah.
now I can see. And so I think it's very important that our community understands that
Mm-hmm.
full circle. What is clinical trials? What is non-invasive, non-prescription opportunities?
Yeah.
I'm glad that a bunch of chiropractors got together because you guys understand the pain and you
We
know that.
do. And it's just, we have chiropractors, we have physical therapists now. Strada, who is on your
Yes,
show,
yes, she was.
he's a physical therapist. We have fitness instructors from the YMCA who are working with us, like Amy, who used to work with with the Y and now works with us. It really does take a lot of people who have a shared interest to do this, right? We all care about pain. I think and helping people. I think
Yes,
that really drives what we do. And you said when you were talking about the people that have been ignored and underrepresented and marginalized, and that is one thing. I know you asked me before, what makes a good researcher? And one of the things is you talk about people who, have just faced so many barriers, and it's unfair. That is one thing I remember very early as a child. I did not like people being treated unfairly. And I actually think over time, that's one of the things when I began to recognize, because honestly, I didn't see it. I have a point of privilege. I wasn't seeing it. And when I started to see it, it really struck me. And you're reminding me now that it goes back to something very deeply, in what mattered to me, even as a child. Like I would stand up for, the one child in the classroom that did not, that was behind or didn't look the same as everybody else. And that to me, being treated unfairly is a real core principle. And I think at least for Partners for Pain, that was one of the things when Brent and I, you met Brent, who's also leading the project, we began to recognize more and more how unfair the research system is, to people of color, to people that look differently than the scientists. And it's not just that, it's anybody, it's by income, it's race, it's ethnicity, it's age. There's so many things. And so when we realized that, that's really what started to go, it's like, this isn't fair. And this gets back to another thing of what might make a good researcher is we are problem solvers. We like to solve problems. And the problem is the lack of fairness, right? The lack of access to good healthcare, to good research. And that is really what drives a lot of what we do. It's wanting to solve that problem. So that's how we ended up with the Partners for Pain project. And when we were made more aware of all the inequity and just the unfairness of it all, it sucks. It just does. And a lot of it is because of the way we do things. And what you sometimes hear is, we'd hear in research, people from these communities, these different communities or marginalized communities, they don't show up. They can't be relied on to show up. And it's like, wait a second, it's because we have so many barriers in the way. How could you? Like, it's on us. It's not on them. And so when that's one of the things I think that, you and along with the community partners have really helped us see. There's more that we can do to remove the barriers. And so it changes the way we approach things and the way we do research. And it makes it better because the end goal is to help people for any research, especially in healthcare. It's to improve the health of everybody who might suffer from a specific condition. Like if it's cancer research, it's someone with cancer. If it's pain. And our goal is to make sure that people have the tools they need in their hands. Anybody who needs that. And right now our focus is on the people that have been ignored the most, or just and that's because it's like, well, listen, their voices need to be heard because there's different needs. Everybody's unique and we aren't all the same. So this is that just gives you a little bit of a background of why we landed on Partners for Pain. So
wow, it's exciting to hear it. I was attracted to Partners for Pain. At first, I thought it's the usual. Yeah, it's a good schmeal. It's a good elevator pitch. Love it. I love it. I'll buy that vacuum. Give me two. But usually it doesn't take long before it kind of the intent is good, but it's the delivery. So how can you deliver something when you're not used to how to deliver it? How to serve that plate of food or that medicine so the person will open their mouth. And so we're always, oh, you're welcome, please come. And when we do come, it's like, wow, did you have to bring everybody with you? Can you sit over there? You're making too much noise. So the words are good and the marketing is excellent. But when you go in, it loses it. When I went into Partners for Pain, I went in with that same attitude, and and the actions changed me. It wasn't words. It wasn't another, oh, we're committed, blah blah. It was the actions,
Mm-hmm.
and so that to me was like, wow, this is the key. Number one, they talk to each other. What? They talk to the people who they invite in to help them, and not only talk to them, they listen to them. What? It's like I kept waiting for the shoe to drop. Okay, yeah, it looks good, but and so I've been here now for a couple of years, maybe even more. I don't even know, and I'm really excited. It's like I really want to talk more about it in Conversaciones de Salud issue. I want to talk more about it with the young people that we work with. I want to talk more about getting those clinical trials. For Latinos, is like, you want to know what from me? You want me to trust you? Yeah, okay, sure, I'll trust you. So then, how do you build that trust that I've got all this pain, my neck, my back? I've been taking pills for a million years. I need something else, but what do I do? And I really feel these conversations help
Mm-hmm.
bridge that. And hearing you talk about those inequities, I feel your team should really put together like this is how you do it training manual.
Here, I'll tell you what the training manual is. And this is, I can't believe how I feel almost stupid saying it because I didn't do it for so long. Listen, really listen, and be open to actually changing what you do. That's the training manual. And that is the thing that is so stunning to me because we have researchers, other researchers that tell us now, come in and say, oh, what's your secret sauce? You're doing so well, working with the community. And it's like listening and being willing to change. And they go, change? Well, why would you change, And it's like, because they're telling you it's not working for them. And, that's the biggest, I think, the most humbling thing to me is realizing as a researcher for so long, we really weren't listening. We were collecting data. It's almost like we're hovering on top, right? And observing, peeking in, but not getting to know the real person. And then people are saying, oh, hey, listen to me. Listen to me. You're not hearing what I have to say. And so if you just come down, it's that relationship. These are partnerships. When we work with, even in the healthcare setting, when you work with your doctor, it should be a partnership. These are relationships. What you are experiencing as a patient matters. It's the same thing in a classroom. If you're a student, what you as a student, is experiencing matters. And, but I think we have these hierarchies all the time built into our system where we lose our, these power differentials. And so it's either a researcher or a doctor or a teacher telling us. And, I guess the biggest thing is for us, to me, is to empower people to see that we're all people. And we have skills and expertise in our respective areas. And it's a conversation. It's a relationship that you have to build because it's about trust, right? That you have to trust one another. And that's another thing that I didn't realize. I think I came as a chiropractor first and then as a researcher. I automatically assumed that everybody would trust me. I don't know why, just because. Why would you? But it came with it because that's how we were trained. Because you are this, they will trust you. Well, no, they don't. And so that was a really important realization. And now I fully understand that. And being a patient myself, I've spent far too much time in the last 5 years in the healthcare system myself. I really see the other side. And, to me, the manual is listen to other researchers, to clinicians, just listen and be willing to change and meet people, like this on the same level. Not like you're better than they are. And they have, I cannot believe how many great ideas have come from our patients, from the participants in our programs, from the community. This study exists because of us working with the community and them saying, we need this. And, us as the researchers, we just saw a funding opportunity and we know how to write the grants and design it so we can go make it happen. We're just a vehicle. We're not the idea generator. It really is the community and the patients. But that changes. That's a different perspective than how researchers usually think, or people in charge usually think. They think they have all the answers. They don't.
Yeah, and I can see why. I've always respected the fact that you spend a lot of years in school and training and learning, passing tests, paying for classes. So it's a big investment. And then you come across someone like myself who looks to you because you made that investment and I want to live and I don't know what to do. And so I think after a while, our roles change a little bit. You become the one I look up to save me, and and then you
Yeah.
look, and it's not that at all. It's that
You bring an
partnership.
important point up because you're right. There is this evolution to save me, right? And we do adapt as, oh, doctor, fix me. And there is, we all have a responsibility here. There's a lot we can do for our own health, right? And so again, we have more of an equal partnership here than we might realize. And I think that's something, I work some with empowering patients to advocate for themselves, and stand up for themselves and make sure their voice is heard. There's another little secret I want to tell you about healthcare providers and scientists. They might look like they know everything and that they're very sure of themselves, but a lot of the time they're not. And there actually is a lot of fear of screwing up. I would say a lot of scientists, a lot of healthcare providers don't want to make a mistake. They also have a fear of people that aren't like them because they don't understand their needs. So instead of getting to know them, which would make good sense, they go further up the ladder, like, I'm going to tell you what to do. You don't listen to me. Well, then, you're not interested. And why should I, listen to you? But a lot of it comes from actually their own insecurities. And the reason I say that is because maybe on the other side, when you come to a healthcare provider as a patient or or you come into a research study as a participant, a volunteer, knowing that they are human too. And they have their own fears and insecurities that are playing into this equation. I've seen it a lot. I've seen a lot of fear from scientists in wanting to truly engage communities because they're afraid. They don't know how to act. Because you're right, Carmen, they haven't been trained that way. And I remember our first community advisory team meetings. I was talking to a partner yesterday about that. They were the most stressful things I was doing, period. I was so nervous before I sat down with all of you because it wasn't something I was used to. And I was so afraid I would say something stupid. I would screw something up, I'd offend someone. So I think my point is we're all humans in this. And I think that is the other thing in the manual of how do you do this better? It's on both sides. Let's just treat each other as good human beings, right?
it really is so simple. You look at children, and when they interact with each other, they leave everything behind, and they just in the moment. And for some reason, and I know how you feel because that's how I feel when I enter a room. It's like, ay, Dios mío, where's the other Puerto Ricans, and they got to be Puerto Ricans from Brooklyn, okay, not just a Puerto Rican.
That's really specific.
That's
Okay.
really specific. Okay, from Bergen Street, coño. So I understand, and I never went into the sciences because the thought that I would be responsible for a human being's life was too much. I couldn't do that. I didn't want to be any kind of a tech and receptionist, nada, because it's such a personal life thing. So
Mhm.
I really that's the thing I really respect and appreciate about Partners for Pain because the team walks in its pride. It doesn't go around saying, "Hey, look at me." It's just very they listen, and sometimes too much because it's like, "Wow, you should talk. I'm done talking. What, you want to talk now?" I don't
I
want
think
to listen.
part of it is because we're just learning so much, Carmen. It's kind of like you open it up and then it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much more to learn here, you know? So that's part of it, I think. We
Can you
really
tell us a little bit about the NIH? Uh,
know the National Institutes of Health. Ah, yes. Um, so the National Institutes of Health is actually the world's largest funder of research. And our studies, the Partners for Pain study, is funded by the National Institutes of Health. Gosh, I think they've been around for 40 years. Is that right? I'm not good on my history on that, but a long enough time. And they really are. They do fund the most research in the world. It's usually the research, even they do what would be called the foundational research that even drug companies lead drug companies to want to go in and research their investigational drugs like for cancer. And so because they take federal money, taxpayer money, and they put it into, big conditions like cancer, the opioid crisis, neurological conditions like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's, diabetes, heart disease. And so, they've been a big driver in all the research, or the majority of the research in the United States. And again, they spend more money on research than anybody else in the world. And that's why, until recently, America could say they were leaders in healthcare research. And that's where NIH is focused on healthcare. Just recently, though, there's been a lot of changes, with our new political landscape. Not to make things political, but the National Institutes of Health has been under attack. The funding has really, I want to say, I don't even know what to say with it. Even though we are still funded, there are a lot of researchers that aren't. There aren't new calls for proposals coming out. So we really are at a standstill with new things coming out. There was some actions that were taken to forbid researchers from doing what's called diversity, equity, and inclusion research, which would mean focusing on populations who are usually underrepresented. Somehow, we are still allowed to do the Partners for Pain project, so we are going to continue to do it and make sure that we can get it done. But the National Institutes of Health is, we can't do this without them. And right now they're under attack and they're being disassembled. There's been a lot of court challenges, judges' orders that say, okay, no, this can't happen, but it's still happening. A large proportion of the workforce that keeps things running at the NIH to make sure we get the money, that we can spend the money, that other scientists review the work that we do to make sure it's good quality. They've lost a lot of their workforce. They were let go. So it's a hard time for science. now is a very, very difficult time, but as always, there's open doors and opportunities. And so you look for ways to do it. There are other funders out there. There's the Patient Center, Patient Center Outcomes Research Institute, PCORI, which is also funded by taxpayer dollars, which isn't under attack right now. So we think that they're going to pick up maybe some of this. But we can expect it to be a little bit more difficult. So I think, it's an interesting time, because when you tell someone who wants to get into science, and it's like, okay, I think science still matters. That isn't going to go away. But maybe we have to look at where we get our funding from differently. And I think that's where the researchers like me, who are used to getting the funding from the NIH, are looking for other avenues, looking for other ways to do this. And that's what we're working on to, what are we going to adapt to? And I think my experience has shown me is that even though, in the face of these challenges, it might look really rotten at the time. I think you've seen this too, Carmen. Other opportunities arise, right? And I actually think this might allow us an opportunity to work even more with communities than we thought originally. So I'm hopeful, even though that the NIH is having a really hard time, and I don't know even what it means for our own resources some days. There are opportunities there, and I think there's a lot of scientists out there that are trying right now to see what those opportunities are, so that there's a place for new scientists to land and really explore the great ideas that they have, because that's what we need in science. We need freshness, we need innovation. We need different perspectives. Again, it's age is another way of kind of pigeonholing things, right? If there's a certain age group that holds all the knowledge, that doesn't allow the new perspectives in. So I think this is going to allow actually for fresh perspectives. I do know younger generations of scientists tend to be really good problem solvers, and they're using technologies and things that we never would have dreamed of. And that's great. So that's the long answer to the NIH.
Well, it's exciting. Thank you for sharing that, because I feel as just a regular Joe Schmo out there, what can I do to help? And so I'm all into, call for action. What can my audience do to make sure that, and I agree with you. There's a Puerto Rican saying, no hay mal que por bien no venga. And that means there's nothing bad that something good cannot come out of. So I'm with you. I feel that with the cutting of the dual languages, that just puts Conversaciones de Salud in a better position, because now we can really bring that real, authentic, information, not opinions, but information, resources, these web shows, so that they can hear from you. And I don't know if you know, but behind your back, we talk about you being the captain of the Starship Enterprise. Remember when Captain Kirk, he left, and then the woman came on? I forgot her name, but you're that captain. And so when you just said this, you're looking at different things, and it just brought that sense of pride of seeing you behind that ship. La Capitan, we're going to take a left into that territory. And so I
just don't see things any other way. Usually what happens is when something bad happens, I'm like, oh, again. And then I lick my wounds, and then it's like, okay, let's go solve this. You pick yourself up, right? And you go and you figure it out. Like, what's the alternative? There really isn't. And especially, there's so much need. And that's the other thing. With the current landscape, there's going to be even more need. And that's what we talk about with our team. As you know, there's never been a more important time to bring pain management resources to the community. Access to healthcare is going to be harder. People are under a ton of stress in their homes. I think of the Latino community right now, my goodness, what families are going through, this is terrible. And that's where pain and stress, there's so many more barriers, so many more challenges. And that's where, when things get really hard, this is where for some people it can get really hard to cope. And that's when, it's easier to take a medication, right? And that's where if things get so hard, might take too much. We might overuse other substances to help dull the pain, not only our physical pain, but our emotional pain and the stress. And so there's never been a more important time for us to be there, for the community and to help and say, okay, what are we going to do now? What's the next step here? How can we get these resources, which we've developed with community members, with people with pain, out there into the community so more people have them? And I think that's where the future conversations are really going to be, Carmen, is figuring out how we do that. So
Well,
there's not.
I like how Partners for Pain always brings it on possibilities, not on deficiencies. Oh no, the sky is falling, as opposed to, okay, now we got to go get the bucket because we got to collect the water over here.
That's right. Okay, we got another leak. Here we go. So,
And that's what I really, really like about being part of Partners for Pain. And I wanted real quick to ask you about the qualitative and quantitative, because of someone like myself, I could bring you all kinds of research, but it doesn't help you at all because it's quantitative and not qualitative, or if you could
or
just,
vice versa.
or vice versa, or dangling participle, I don't know. But if you could just touch upon that, that would be
I
awesome.
can. Well, there's a lot of different types of research, right? And some people think it's all about numbers. And that's quantitative. It's when we measure things. It's quantities. It's how satisfied is someone about something. That's a quantitative measure. We've all taken some of those surveys, either in the doctor's office or even when we bought something and they want to know if we like it. That's a survey, right? They give you a scale. There's 5 stars or 5 thumbs or whatever. And that's quantitative research. So it says everything can be translated to a number. But not everything can be translated into a number, like patient stories, right? How they feel more about things. And, stories matter a lot to humans. It's really important to human beings that their stories are heard. That's how they feel seen and heard. And there's research on this that shows that it's healthy for us to tell stories. There's in almost every culture, right? There's a history of storytelling, and that's qualitative research, which is really exciting. Some people say, oh, I don't like numbers, therefore I can't be a scientist. Oh yeah, you can. You can become a qualitative researcher. That's more in the social sciences, where you interview people, kind of like this, Carmen, and then you interview multiple people to see the themes that start to arise. And that's actually how we got to the Partners for Pain project, by interviewing people, gathering this information, and instead of just taking it from Carmen, because Carmen says this, it's like, okay, this is good, this is what Carmen says, but what happens if we, interview someone else and someone else and someone else? And you know what you start to see? Because we're human beings, there's some common themes. Now there's some unique themes, but there's some common ones. And then that allows us to go forward with maybe a research question. So qualitative allows us to measure people's feelings, how they experience things. So it's much more than a number. So quantitative is research with numbers. Qualitative is research with words and stories. And actually, when you bring both together, it's like magic. And that's actually what we do in the Partners for Pain project. So.
That's beautiful. And because Partners for Pain really helped me solidify Conversaciones de Salud. Because you were telling me about the stories, the importance. I kind of always knew that, but when you talk to researchers, they want the numbers, and it's got to be this and it's got to be in that line. And so I don't want to, I don't get into debates. My daughter was a statewide champion debater, so she
Yeah.
taught me not to get into debates because
Yeah. Don't enter that. Yeah. Sorry.
but hearing this from you just validates the importance of these podcast conversations, the importance of having people come in and share. And my feeling with Partners for Pain is that you have solidified the foundation. The seeds have been planted. The land has been toiled. We have planted it, that the seeds are sprouting. And so I guess my next question, and before we end, is if you could change one thing in the current healthcare system to better support inclusion, what would it be? Simple question, $1 million answer.
Remove the barriers
Yeah, because I would imagine that
and
there's
listen.
nothing but barriers in the current health
And
system.
it
I,
comes down to, yeah, it's, and maybe it backs it up a little bit, Carmen. For inclusion, I think it gets back to part of the barrier is by not listening to what people need. So I think what we talked about earlier about listening to what people are telling you and believing them, that will help remove the barriers, right? So that's the first thing. Just saying, okay, I'll remove the barriers I think that are there. No, that's not enough. Let me clarify that. It really is about listening more and really, really listening and being willing to change the way you do things. Because what you're going to hear all the time in the healthcare system, oh, we can't do that. That's not the way we do this. Well, why? Why?
why?
Now,
Why?
can I add another one too? This comes from being Canadian. Make sure that healthcare isn't a money-making business. People
But it
that drives.
is.
I know. So I can't
But
change
it
that right
is.
now. If I could change one thing, that would be it. That everybody gets paid the same thing. Okay. And that there isn't someone at the top of the food chain making mugo bucks because someone is sick. I think that's just wrong. I just do. That's my injustice thing, right? But
No, but
I
we have companies that their job is to make us sick. The
know.
tobacco industry, fast food industry. I mean, th-
Even our healthcare system,
even our healthcare system,
there's surgeries people get that they don't need, and
medication they don't need.
medications they don't need. And in the meantime, the people who do need surgery or do need certain medications don't get them. It's so, I call it being kittywampus. It's completely upside down. And it's, yeah, oh, that's a big question. But, the first, I think it is listen to what people needs. Let people's needs drive what you do. Don't, right now the healthcare system isn't focused on the patient's needs. It's focused on the system's needs. And that's wrong. That's wrong. It just is, it's why do you exist? And right now I think the argument would be is to make money in some cases. And so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And that's very, that's the part of our system. Entrepreneurship, make money. You got to make money, make the money. Did you make the money? Where's the money? Make the money.
And
And
I'm
so,
not, people can
no, I
make
like the money.
but I don't like not at the expense of someone else's suffering.
No,
That
no.
part, it's there. This is an ethical issue and an oral, right? An ethical issue, a moral issue. And this is where I would make an argument for the ethicists. We need ethicists, not only scientists, but ethicists and students that are interested in, philosophy and ethics and doing the right thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's all
You give me hope
oh,
because that's what I wanted to hear. I thought, oh, maybe she's going to say, write a letter, get 100 signatures. But I really like what you just,
I keep
wow.
and what you can do as an individual. is every time you show up somewhere where you don't feel you're being heard, make sure you're heard. If it's in a doctor's office, and I know it doesn't always feel, but you can learn how to do that in a respectful way, have your little cheat notes of, yes, and right. And I think just always knowing that your voice matters. It really does. Because like you said earlier, and you remind me of this all the time, all you have to do is affect one person, right? And it might change, it might open up the door. So you just keep going. And even though it might feel like you're banging your head against a brick wall, right? You just keep going. So make your voice heard. It doesn't matter if you're in a doctor's office and you don't feel like they're hearing you. Just say, hey, I need you to hear me. And if they don't, well, you'll try again the next time. But you just don't give up. That's one thing. Yeah, I think it's really important.
I like that. And I like the part about bringing your notes, because
Oh, yeah.
that shows that person that you're paying attention. You're not just listening, but you're
No.
actually, I'm respecting what you're telling me, and I want to make sure I wrote it down right.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I know we're running out of time, but I really want to thank you so much for this, robust conversation, because that's what I wanted to have, was just, cafecito, and
It's
let's
so
get to
much
the
fun, Carmen. It really is.
nitty gritty of what que pasa. As a captain of the ship, Partners for Pain,
Yes.
what do you see, like, at the end of the trial, or what would you like the report to say, or people to say, or your legacy to
I
say,
already
or
know that.
epitaph?
I know that there are things that you can do, that you have the power to control your pain, at least some of it, to manage it yourself, at least some of it. Maybe not all of it, but there are things you can do, and there are things you can help others do. That there are things out there that work. We know that, we're seeing that. You don't always need the healthcare system. Sometimes you do, but there are things you can do, and we're going to make sure that those things get out into the community.
And that's what I want to make sure that Conversaciones de Salud highlights, because we need that. I myself, I'm like, well, where do I go and tell them I don't want another pill? They give me another pill because I don't want the pill. So then they tell me, well, I think you may have some emotional problems. You think? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I got emotional
Yeah,
problems.
look
Okay.
at the world we live in.
And you're part of it, sir. So I just want to thank you for that. And I know, I don't know if you had time to end with a quote. I don't know if you were able to get a quote that you could leave us with.
I did not, Carmen. I am so sorry. I am so
No,
sorry. But I think that it's. I am gonna. This is a pretty trite one I can come up with, but I really mean it. It's the Nike one. Just do it. Just do it.
I love
Let's.
it.
You know. Yeah. Don't overthink things. Just do it.
Just do it. It's so simple and it's so true, because that's what
Yeah.
we have to do, is just do it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
thank you so much. Yep, I
Yeah.
think we're almost done here. And I want to definitely thank Partners for Pain team. So
Oh.
many, we didn't mention your names, but I want to thank Clarence Jones. He's supporting these shows. And of course, Speak and Spin, and my partner, Strong Mind, Strong Body Foundation, the Youth Community Journalism Institute, that the young people, they graduate today, a class of 18.
That is amazing.
More
Yay.
than double last year. Eric Ortiz, what a coach. I got to tell you.
That is
Wowza.
awesome.
I will say I helped, but I really didn't. I wasn't helping nothing. So I want to give them a shout out to Pepe, of course, and to the folks who really planted the seed on opioids and health. And that was the Department of Human Services. And they still answer my phone calls, and they still give me resources. So I want to give them a great big shout out. And I want to thank everybody, and please have a wonderful weekend. And Dr. Roni, we must do this again.
Oh, I would love to have coffee and conversation with you, Carmen. It was
Let's
so
do it and bring in the researchers and the team. I want to interview the whole team.
absolutely. That sounds great.
Thank you so much. Adios, everybody. Have a beautiful August summer day.